Can't see me?
So nervous.
Why are you nervous?
I'm always nervous. I'm just a nervous guy.
I'm still nervous for this. Are you still nervous for like when you start shows?
Yeah, for the most part. Like this has been like very cushy in the sense of like, I've got a lot of people behind me that will help me if something goes terribly wrong, which is always really nice.
You shouldn't be nervous. You're only on camera.
I'm only on camera. This is only getting recorded to live on the internet forever.
Yes. I still get nervous for all of these.
It's crazy. I mean, my buddy came the other day and he was like, bro, we were playing in DC. He's like, this is insane. And I was like, yeah, I guess it kind of is. You know, like when you get in the rhythm of like doing clubs or theaters, you're like, yeah, this is okay. But like when an outsider comes in and it's like sees a sold out arena, they're like, what is this?
Gives perspective.
Perspective, and yeah, it's just different perspective.
JP.
Yes.
Huff.
Yes. That's me.
That's how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Am I pronouncing
Nailed
it?
it. Yeah.
JP Huff is here. It's this guy.
Hi.
Right here.
It's me.
He runs sound for a band called
Pierce the Veil.
Pierce the Veil.
Yeah.
I almost said I Prevail, but it's not I Prevail, it's Pierce
That
the Veil.
would be Mr. Josh Mahan.
Who's fantastic.
He's so nice. He looks, yeah.
Is he? Are you just saying that because you're on camera? Or?
No, I'm saying that because he's my friend.
Hi.
Hi, Josh.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
What got you into running sound?
My mom managed a band.
Your mom managed?
My mom managed a band. I was a singer-songwriter out of Nashville.
Your mom managed a band?
Yeah, your mom managed a band. And I knew around like 7th, 8th grade, I had already tried band, and I was like, fuck that, I'm not. I was like, I'm not doing band. And
just keep your clothes on, no swearing.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not doing band. I'm gonna be in the NBA. Like, this is it. Oh yeah. I was like fully like, I'm playing in the NBA.
You're not 9 feet tall though.
I know, that was the problem. I've been this tall since like 6th grade. So,
okay. Well, 6th grade, that was your...
6th, 7th grade, yeah.
That's tall for 6th, 7th grade.
I was tall. So then when I realized that was not a real option, I kind of like slowly got back into band. We got my dad drum lessons for Father's Day one year. He started playing and I was like, that's cool. Like I used to kind of play drums. So like I kind of like fiddled. And then like 8th grade, I was like, I'm gonna play band. And then there was the fall of my freshman year of high school. It was either play football or be in marching band. And I was like, well, marching band doesn't make me go to the weight room and wake up at like 6 a.m. every day. So I think I'm gonna try this marching band thing out. And then my mom started managing a band. She was our campus minister. She like dealt with like the youth group stuff.
Okay.
So it was like a worship thing.
Yeah.
And after that, he did a couple of big shows around me. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa.
Okay.
So when like a production crew came to town, I was like, whoa, what's this all about? And I met their front of house guy, Larry, and I was like, did you go to school to do this? And he was like, no. And I was like, sick. I want to be you. And he let me be an intern for him for like 3 summers when I was in high school. I like couldn't drive a car, but I could fly a PA. And then from then on, it was just like, I mean, people joke, they're like, oh, well, you know, I always wanted to be a studio guy, or like, I always wanted to be in a band. Like, I've wanted to be a front of house guy since I was like 14, which is crazy.
That's awesome. So
yeah.
it was church and also musician.
Yeah.
So is this another failed musician? I swear.
Is it?
I want to make a T-shirt. If you want a T-shirt that says failed musician, please comment below because I think
It could be.
I'm gonna do that.
At a certain point, it was like
not failed musician,
well,
but
I was like playing in marching band. Like I played drums in a band, and we did all the other things. Like I was playing, and then at a certain point, I was just like, I'm not bothered to be on stage. Like I want to go to front of house. Like some of my first gigs were on like Heritage 3000, like big analog desks, like big analog racks, running like massive copper to front of house. And I was like, this is sick. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been doing it ever since.
Do you remember your first gig?
My first like professional gig, or like my first like
First time
gig?
running sound.
Oh, it was like a side room at like a church conference. I would go to Louisiana and work for this guy Larry, and there was one summer where he was like, all right, you get a breakout room. And I was like a little like 01V. And I was like, I don't like, turn it up, and it sounded good. And I was like, okay, this is cool, I guess. And then I would go back to school, my high school, and I would do sound for all the plays and all the church stuff and like all that kind of thing. And yeah, it was, once you like got in the flow of it, it was like, okay, this is cool. And like you thought you were like hot stuff, then you'd go like mix a band. And then I was like, oh no.
Do you remember your first band?
Yeah, Little Texas.
Okay.
Country band.
Yeah.
And the monitor, it was like 2011, 2012. And the monitor desk was basically an iPad, but it wasn't an iPad. It was controlled on a laptop. And the drummer, I actually remember him yelling at me like, I need more hi-hat in my wedge. And I was like trying to turn it up with like arrow keys. And I was like, I don't really this isn't what I'm used to. And then after that, I worked at a small, I went to school in St. Paul, Minnesota for a while.
Okay.
And I worked at a small club, and I would do the Sunday like reggaeton, like million musicians, bongos, drums, 1,000 guitars, and it was on an analog desk, and it was like figure it out. And those were some of the first mixing experiences I had. And it was
so tell me about how you got on tour.
How I got on tour.
Yeah, do you remember your first tour?
Yeah, I worked for a cover band in the
This week, actually.
Yeah, exactly. This is my first tour. I worked for a cover band in the Midwest called the Pork Tornadoes.
I'm sorry, did you say the pork?
Pork Tornadoes. Go look them on YouTube.
Are they still around?
Oh yeah, we still work together a lot actually. I've mixed a lot of their content and stuff, and we'll do like studio sessions, or they'll text me and be like, "We're playing the iWireless Center or whatever it is now. Like, can you come up?" And you know, they're still some of my good buddies, and we would just tour around the Midwest, just do like Minnesota and Wisconsin. And then after that, I worked for a band helping with monitors and guitar teching called Welshly Arms. And I was not a good guitar tech. I was a terrible guitar tech. And I was okay. I could like run cables. And we did some really good shows, but it was like van touring. And then I mixed front of house for Youngblood for a minute. Yeah, that's crazy.
Vastly different than country.
Yeah, exactly. And then after Youngblood, I did Masego.
Okay.
And Masego took me pretty much up until the pandemic. Okay. Masego and Jake Miller.
Okay.
And that was just kind of one of those things where like people always say, once you get your first tour, it's easy to get your next one.
Sure.
It's just, and that was like, I was out with Welshly and someone hit me up like, hey, there's this Masego guy. And we did the entire world in like 6 months. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then, yeah, you just keep going. And there was a while there where I had a problem saying no, which is a good problem to have in the beginning. But as you go on, it starts to wear on you a little bit.
Well, that's kind of the tough thing. Like in the beginning, you want to say yes to everything to get the experience and get the resume, but there's a certain point to where it's like you gotta, to keep from burnout.
Yeah, and that's what I've been practicing this year a little bit. Is like we've had a pretty concrete schedule this year. We did South America and Europe, like March, April, and then we had this all summer, and that's already 5 or 6 months out of the year, and in the grand scheme of things, that's a lot. So I've practiced saying no a few times. There's a couple shows that I could have made, but I would rather be at home.
Was it weird? Just that?
Yeah. Well, and the good thing is
yes, dang it.
Yeah, shoot. Managers are like all good friends of mine for some of these bands. So if I could just straight up just be like, man, I can't. Like I got things going on at home. I don't want to sprint out and take every, whatever show just because I need the extra $200. Like sometimes your mental well-being and sleep is way better. Yeah. Way more necessary.
No, that makes sense.
Especially when you got a tour like this. Like I got to save some of it. Yeah. Can't burn out 2 weeks into this.
So how'd you get with these guys?
With Pierce the Veil, I got referred by like a lot of people. The first tour back for them was opening for I Prevail. The front of house guy at the time hit up our manager at the time and said like, I think this guy would be great. And a company I used to work for in Chicago, the owner kind of did some work with these guys, hit up the manager, said, I think these guys would be great. And I mean, it was like 4 different angles. And finally, management called me and they said, you've been referred 4 or 5 times already. So do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah. And then that was August of 22. And now it's July of 24. And
you're still here.
We're still here.
Dude.
I'm around.
Dude, that's awesome.
It's so much fun. It's fun to get referred. It's fun to get the cold text, the cold email of like, we know your work. I've been DM'd by like other bands, like members, and just been like, we know who you work for. Do you have time? You want to come out and do this? I'm like, well, usually like management sends an email, but like the lead singer of a band DMing you is kind of wild. Yeah.
So what do you think was that turning point? Because I know I have like engineers that reach out to me specifically like, hey, I'm really looking.
Yeah.
What separates those people from getting the phone calls, you think, and reaching out?
I think it's just like your network and just making friends and just letting people know that you're down to do anything. Because that's a lot of people will just be like, I just do pop music, or like, I just do rock music, or I've mixed everything from hip hop to metal to country to jazz. Like I just say, like I said in the beginning, I just said yes to everything, and you make all those connections and all those different genres and worlds, and then you just get cold texts, cold emails. We got a one-off, and I moved to Nashville, and that helps a lot too.
So what piece of advice would you give to audio engineers that would immediately make their lives easier?
Know when to stop, maybe, because there's plenty of times where like if I would have just stopped at a certain point, it would have been exponentially better. Okay. I see a lot of people
like stop your career or stop burnout.
Stop the. I can't say stop grinding over a mix, but like, you know, sometimes it's like that sounds good. You can leave that. Like you're done. Yeah. I see a lot of people just chase their tails around, myself included. Sometimes you'll catch a couple shows where it's just like, what does he do? Like, the snare drum is not turned on. And it's like, but that bass guitar sounds real good. It's like, if you would have just stopped at bass guitar and been like, you know, focused on this other thing. So.
Well, one good thing I love about live is that, and I've tried doing a few studio stuff and editing songs in post, and it's like, you never know when you're done, you're always editing. At least here it's like, well, song's done.
Right, the song's over, you can drop it.
And we can go to, but you'll be, I don't know if you're like me, but I was in my head a lot.
I'm always in my head.
Especially earlier on, and very like, there's a point to where I have to like, for me it was the very beginning of the show, I get really nervous about it, get a couple songs in, but then I'd like have that moment of look around and go like, oh my gosh. Oh. Everybody here, I'm making their world.
Yeah.
At least being a part of, not me.
Right. The first few shows like of a tour, usually like the first 1 or 2, like I'm grabbing the mute, I'm like shaking, I'm like, okay, here we go. Like it's gonna be fine. And that's sometimes like what you just have to tell yourself is like, it will be fine, it'll be okay. But yeah, sometimes you need to stop. And if you dig yourself into a hole too far out here, you will be in a lot worse off than having maybe like a wonky bass guitar or a snare drum or something. So yeah.
Do you remember that moment for you where you're like, oh, snaps, I made it?
Yeah. It was I feel like I've had a couple of those moments. I'm reminded like often, and it wasn't until the last maybe like 2 years with these guys where it's like, just because you do an arena one day doesn't mean you can't do a club the next day. And that's very like settling of like, oh no, I've made it. Like I have like consistent work. I'm doing, the band likes what I do. I get calls, like I'm in it. Like you're doing the thing that you were set out to do 14, 15 years ago, it's been now. And now it's just very comforting to me, that's what making it is. Like you don't have to do arenas and stadiums every day. Yeah. But like making it is just, you're working, you're out here, you're getting paid to do what you love, and no one's forcing you to be here. You can go work at McDonald's if you want. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm just, especially on this tour, I'm very grateful for the opportunities. I'm very grateful for this band to continue to take me places, and I've gained their trust. So it's nice to be able to like. And to me, that it's super helpful in making it. Yeah. Is just I got a bunch of guys on stage that trust me. Can't ask for much more.
That's awesome. Yeah. What is the most common mistake you see new engineers making?
Trying to get too complicated. Trying to get too like I built this mix in the studio, because now it's like so accessible to everybody that like you forget about gain structure and high pass filter. Sometimes you're like, I know these 6 plugins at these settings are going to make this sound like this, when in reality, like on a, if you have the right tool or the right desk or the right whatever, sometimes it only takes 2 steps instead of 10 steps.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of guys get backed into a corner, and they'll come out and be like, I've only been doing this for a year, but I understand how to make stack plugins.
Yeah.
And it's like,
So at what point do you feel like you have too much outboard gear or too much plugins?
Too much outboard gear is not a real thing. Yeah.
All the outboard gear.
I don't know. I've done a good job of like reeling it in, because I was telling you earlier, like, what's stopping me from doing a full analog setup? And it's like, well, actually a lot of things. So just having a good, clear perspective of like, do I need it? Turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. If it's there and it's tactical and you want to use it and it does something awesome, if it's there because you saw someone else do it, but it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Because there'll be times during the show where like, I'll try something new that day, and in the middle of the show, I'll just turn it off and just be like, better, worse, in context. There's 15,000 people here. Is it, what's happening? And if I'm not immediately like, oh shit, like turn it back on, then it probably did something for the better, and I'm probably going to keep it there.
Sure.
And also we're a band that does a lot of international stuff, so I kind of have to reel it in with like, especially like outboard stuff. I have to reel that in because I can't freight a massive rack everywhere. And it also comes down to console choice as well. We've used other desks that have great tools on them. This desk has great tools on them. I hope to keep using this desk for a while. And that kind of limits the rack next to me a little bit.
Do you ever find when you do like stuff over the pond, you have to take less equipment, that you're like, maybe I didn't need that? Or is it more of like, man, I really wish I had that?
What's really nice is, for the most part, the stuff in here is kind of, I don't want to say essential, but like it's doing big, broad strokes. So I have a good reason to bring it with me. I don't have some of the other like little stuff I can maybe source over there. And it depends on like when we're going to be there and how long. Yeah. That kind of also limits me. Like we did Australia last year for like 2 weeks. So I just took a 5045, the Fusion, and the Bus Plus, and like that was all I needed. Yeah. Everything else just moved to the desk. If I could freight this rack around, I would love to.
Well, looks like they're making pink.
Yeah.
We're gonna go show you some drum miking stuff. And go. Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about microphones. What are you using?
I'm trying out these new Lawton Tom mics. A lot of people are using the snare mics, which I'm using that one as well. It's kind of tucked away over there in the pit of microphones. I had been like super curious about it. And then they released a Tom mic, and I remember sitting at home, like watching the videos with Sully and the guy who mixes all the Foo Fighters stuff, Daryl. And they're like, Tom mic, and they were doing the thing, and I was like, I want those. And I hit up our Sweetwater guy, and I was like, is it possible to get a demo? And he was like, oh yeah, they'll be there next week. And I was like, hell yeah.
What were you using before?
Audix stuff. So I was like D2 and D6s, which like...
Ooh, no D4s?
No D4s. D4s are super cool, but I was kind of telling you earlier, I use a lot of stuff that's like in my locker.
Yeah.
It just makes me a little more comfortable. Vendors have been super great about like a D4 and a D2 is super easy to source elsewhere. But if I'm bringing it anyway, I was like, maybe it's time to spread out a little bit.
Tell me a little bit about the importance you feel of owning your own microphone as opposed to renting them.
It's super nice to just like have control over it. And like, I'll jump from gig to gig. Like if Pierce aren't doing something and I'm doing something with someone else, I mix this band Blame by You sometimes. And it's just nice to roll up with the tools that you want. And the tools that, because we've all done like rock clubs where it's like, I've only got 57s. And it's like, I wish I had a D6. It's like, just bring the D6. Just like, it's not a big deal to own the mics.
Microphones
Get out of
are
here.
Stupid.
That's Justin.
So what would you say to a new engineer that would like to get a starter mic set, but is a little confused of all the freaking options?
I would just start with the basics. I would just start with like whatever, kind of like what you have in the rock clubs, because like some of these clubs have great mic selections, but they will also people spill beer on them. People have people beat them up. Like, I've done plenty of punk rock shows where someone will just like thrash the drum kit. So like, they might have had working 609s yesterday, but they don't have working 609s today. So if you start there at the basic stuff and kind of see what you like and see what you don't like, then you can kind of dig deeper of like, okay, well, what's maybe a nicer version of a D2 or a nicer, not that those aren't nice microphones, but like,
do you change it much depending upon the style of music, or do you kind of keep it consistent across the board?
I kind of keep it pretty consistent. Like, we're trying in the kick drum on this tour, the D12 VR from AKG. And I was using D6s before on floor toms and kick in, just because like I know when I mix rock music that's what you use.
Yeah.
And this time around I was like, let's switch it up. And luckily I did a couple festivals with someone else before this, and I was like, well, now's the perfect time. So swapped it, loved it, put it in here, love it. Yeah.
I've seen a common trend with these videos I'm doing that the important thing is source tone and microphone.
1,000%.
Or at least to have consistency with what you're choosing.
That's what like I'm super stoked on with all of like this entire crew is we're super into gear and tone. And I mean, during our line checks, like me and our drum tech Travis will sit there for hours, and he's like, well, should I bring it down or should you? And I was, we'll go like shows where it's like, okay, well, yesterday was cool, now let's completely scrap it and try this. And that's really nice. Sometimes it gets really annoying because you can't get like a really strong, solid foundation.
Sure.
But that's what I like about carrying my own microphones as well, is like, I know that microphone is doing this, and this sounds like this, so it's probably the source.
Yeah.
So then you go to the source and you fix it, and okay, cool. So there's something to be said about right microphone on the right source, but when you're used to using these or used to using a certain microphone, you know how it reacts. And this is, the source is kind of, you can mold it a little bit.
Well, talk to me a little bit about triggers, because some people say it's cheating.
It is cheating.
But you're not using it for a sample, and it's not necessarily cheating, it's just in the tool.
No,
so explain it a little bit to me.
It's just having these open the gates for the toms like everyone's doing. I mean, this is like not really a secret anymore, if it ever was a secret. And it's on tight. In a room like this, especially in the round, I mean, we've got 36 subs like right above the drummer.
Sure.
So like when that's all pumping, I'm just trying to, and these are really great about eliminating bleed. I'm just trying to eliminate as much bleed as possible, and this just gives me a little extra control. There was days in South America where like the DIs didn't work for the triggers, or the triggers weren't working, or something was weird, and I was like, whatever, we'll go without the triggers, and it was just fine. So it's just to me, it's just a little more of a controlled thing. And these are actually like pretty lively. They need a little bit of processing on their own sometimes. So I'll like, you have your key gate filters on your gate channel strip. It's just like another set of like key gate filters.
Well, I love when people give crap and call it cheating, but is cheating really a bad thing if it's helping you out? I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's super. We tried it a couple, when we first started 2-3 years ago with this band, and we've gone through a couple different trigger brands and a couple different options. And this is the nicest because we do enough international fly stuff with other drum kits that these just screw on, screw off. And those Pintech ones, when you just stick them on, are awesome. But then they're stuck on the drum, and kind of, you can peel them off, at a certain point it wears it out, whatever. And these have just been great to just stick on, stick off, done.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, these are, like I said, these are the only, besides vocals, these are the only live mics on stage. We've got quad cortexes for guitars and bass, and those techs grind over the tones as well. And everyone in the band is super noodly.
What are you using for capsules for vocals?
The V7s from SE, and we like them. The rejection is great. I mean, it's a very standard microphone these days. There's a couple other things I'd like to try, just to try. But the time on this, we don't have a lot of time, and we were kind of going through some changes of new drums, new processing, new consoles. So we tried to keep as much the same as possible.
Yeah.
And then I went ahead and just switched all their drum mics, which is funny to say. But vocals, Vic the singer really likes his vocal sounds and likes the rejection of it. And yeah, it was just, that's a natural something that I didn't feel like needed to change for this one.
All right, what are we doing for kick drum? You said?
All right, so kick drum. Oh, you're good. Sorry, Flowns. So kick drum, we've got Kelly's shoe in here, which I love because it keeps everything timeline, phase coherent. You do it once, it's done, it's locked in there. And then on the in, we've got the biodynamic D71C TG, some combination of those numbers and letters. To me, it just sounds beefy. Everyone's using 91. I love a 91. I've been using this for like 6 years, and it has not failed me once. And then we've got the VR from AKG, the D12, which sick microphone, sounds great. There's a couple filters. There's a couple filters on the top that you can come in and out of, and yeah, it rips. It's a nice change of pace.
Nice.
Yeah. We've set up in this little cluster today because it's a little tighter, but big old execution rack. Has everything in here, patching. The openers are on the same SD loop as us. So we've got 2 SD racks. I've got my rack in here. I love an execution rack. Just wheel it in, pin some NC14 or W1 or whatever, power it up, good to go. What else? SD12 at monitors, for those who care about monitors. Little work box.
Little outboard.
Little outboard. This is on the monitor end. I kind of have the same thing in front of house. Vic and Jaime, who sing and scream and do all those things. We tried the Shelford in Europe earlier this year, and as soon as we turned it on, everyone was like obsessed, which, as you should be. It's a great channel strip, EQ, comp, the whole thing. And we just got 2 to start, and then this tour, I've got 2 and they got 2 monitors, so we can actually, like me and the monitor guy before had to agree on what we were doing with it. Like he wanted like a big boost at 16K or whatever, and I'm like, sometimes it doesn't really work for me.
Yeah.
So we got a set for here for monitors. I have a set out front. We're driving them similar, but not the exact same. And yeah, it's awesome.
Nice.
Turning that silk knob on and off is like game changer. Game changer for sure.
Walk me through your morning routine.
Wake up and open TikTok.
Yeah.
Yes and no.
On a gig day.
On a gig day, I wake up, kind of check where we're at, check my phone, check my email, make a cup of tea, walk in, kind of get just kind of get a general lay of the land, see where we're at, remind myself where we're at sometimes, and then hop in. And usually on this tour we dump around like 10:30. Sometimes it's dumped for us, so then it's just kind of like making sure, getting all our stuff together.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of a slow burn of like, get front of house set up, let my backline guys do their thing. And then after backline's all set up, throw some drum mics on. By then it's about noon or so. And then after that, it's just kind of it's a little bit of a slow burn. Do some virtual sound check. I'm pretty religious about trying to virtual sound check every day, whether it's in my headphones, on some near fields, through the PA, or all the above, and just kind of clean up from the night before. Then yeah, it's line check, sound check, take a break for a minute, have a Red Bull or something, and then it's go time. And then we load out, and then we do it all again the next day.
One thing I had to learn as a young engineer was the importance of a routine and a list and a schedule, because you'll miss things.
Oh yeah.
If you don't do that. Did you find the same thing for you?
Yeah.
Or?
I mean, getting in a routine, like if you get bogged down with like living in this bubble, because it is very much so a bubble. And you kind of get out of your routine. It makes going home harder sometimes. Because like the beginning of this tour, I was really good about waking up early and like kind of having my routine. But once you, for me at least, when I sleep in like a day or two, it's just like all out the window. So now it's funny enough, the next few shows I'm trying to be up early, like healthy, go for a walk, go for a run, keep my kind of like at-home routine active here while I try to fade out of this tour. I think we've only got like 2 weeks left or something. So it's like fade this out, fade real life back in, a lot happier.
Yeah.
Easy.
How do you, with the hustle and bustle, with everything going on, how do you quiet the noise?
Ooh, that's a good question. Just by like keeping up with like friends and family and just making sure like you get your alone time. There's plenty, like we're like as a crew and a band, we're all incredibly close. So like even like on our off days, we'll have people in buses and hotel rooms talking about work. And sometimes that's like incredibly helpful, and sometimes it's incredibly like hurtful, because it's like you just need a day away sometimes. Like this is a job at the end of the day. And sometimes just walking away from it or just letting people know like, hey, like I'm not in a bad mood, like I just need some space today kind of thing, and kind of reset yourself. What was thunder? Just kind of resetting yourself that way is super helpful for me. Just taking a day to yourself, doing something you want to do, eating what you want to eat, going where you want to go. It's fun to have friends and be a part of this group, but sometimes you definitely need your space. Sometimes you definitely need your space.
What is something you wish you would have learned sooner?
How to get into a routine.
How to what?
How to get into a routine. Getting into the routine definitely helps a lot. Before it was just like flying by the seat of your pants. But that was also kind of like trying to get hold of like the job and what it entails. But getting into the routine and realizing that this isn't like a life or death situation out here is, if I would have learned that a long time ago, I would have been a little more relaxed. I'm still pretty anxious, but yeah, relaxes you a little more.
So in a room like this, there's a lot of flat areas and a lot of noise for frequency and bass and all that crap. What is your advice to cleaning up the low end and the sub to make it not sound like it's bouncing everywhere?
Yeah, that's a good question. Sometimes just your volume, your volume. It's the classical sound guy, like, oh, it'll tighten up when like bodies get in the room. And sometimes it's a good excuse, but sometimes it's truthfully like, if you just peel it back a little bit during sound check, like 2-3 dB, you get that back when bodies come in here. That's at least what I've been doing. Hopefully that works.
What is one piece of your kit that you can't live without?
My headphones or my virtual sound check, whatever it takes to virtual sound check.
Yeah?
Yeah. Between that, piece of hardware, probably like my SSL Fusion or my Bus Plus. But for sure, my virtual sound check ability or capability or rig or whatever you want to call it, and some headphones. Yeah. That gets me, my preparation for this stuff is like, takes way too long sometimes. And that's the vibe, just preparation.
What do you think is better, lighting or audio?
Backline. Backline.
What do you feel like is one unspoken rule of the audio world?
One unspoken rule of the audio world? Sometimes it's spoken, but don't mix louder than the headliners.
Yeah.
That's kind of like an unspoken thing. That's very situational as well, but that's something that I've definitely been guilty of before, where a band after us is much quieter with all, in the course of the last 10 years or whatever, but yeah, something like that.
What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert I've ever been to?
Yeah.
The 1975.
Yeah?
They Rip. When I was a little kid, my first concert was Huey Lewis and the News, and that was insane. But I saw the 1975 in Mexico City last year, and it was like insane.
You have mixed several different genres of music.
Yeah.
from hip hop to rock to, well,
Pop,
country. Is your approach to mixing the same for all of those, or does it differ a little bit?
It differs a little bit, but honestly, it all is pretty much the same. Like, I'm still stuck with like gain structure, high pass filter kind of thing. That all stays the same. It's just one kick drum might be a little louder than the other. Vocal might be on top a little more than some of the others. In that realm, it switches up, but that's just like a genre specific. Like, even if you just listen to the records on Pierce the Veil versus a country musician, like, you're gonna hear differences. So I just try to stick to whatever that is.
For this tour, do you have a favorite song?
For Pierce the Veil?
Yeah.
I love Karma Police. I love Past the Nirvana. It's always fun when they play King for a Day to see the crowd just like go absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Just that keys in the beginning, because that's right before, that's the last song, and that's right before Blink, so the arena's usually full. So when everyone hears those keys, you just hear 17 to 65,000 people just be like, just freak out. So that's always nice.
That's awesome.
It's a good way to go, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah.
It's a good wake-up call. If the set's been good or bad, that song always goes off no matter what it sounds like. So.
What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned from one of your mentors?
Ooh. Just being polite, being nice, being a human. Like, a lot of people will come out here and you get the grumpy roadie mentality or whatever it is. Everyone's got stuff going on that they might be open about or whatever, so it might put them in a bad mood. Everyone has bad days, but just being nice and being polite and saying please and thank you and asking permission, like, those things go an incredibly long way.
So you walk up to a board for the first time, a new board. What's the first thing you do besides turn it on?
Probably get my routing down, depending on who it is. If it's like someone like Pierce, I know the channel list and the input count and what's coming down where, or where at least it should be. I just try to quickly route maybe a few effects, a couple groups.
Do you have go-to effects?
Not. If I'm walking up to the desk, not really. I'll just stock reverbs and just kind of get roughly in my little template that I have for these guys. I kind of have that memorized a little bit. And then really, I'm trying not to pre-mix a whole lot because you just don't know. If it's so quick like throw and go, then it'll take me like 2 or 3 songs to get something going, but luckily I haven't had to throw and go like that in a long time.
Sure. So. I had a request a little bit to walk through how you set up your console, and what I mean by that is kind of like, are you a subs on aux person?
No.
Are you effects send, effect return, right, left? You have everything.
So
obviously you have kick, snare, tom.
So like we'll take drums as an example to start.
Are you a groups person?
Yeah, big groups person, honestly. Let's pump here and we'll go here. So like we've got kick, snare, toms, overheads. They're all gonna hit a group. So I've got, just to combine here, kick, snare, toms, overheads. These are effects sends. On this, you can't go group to group, so you have to wedge some channels in between, which is always kind of quirky. So I've got a bunch of channels buried that are like wedged between, kick and snare and toms and the compressed groups or the parallel groups. Parallel drums, I love parallel compressed drums. It just makes it big. And then from there, I also will throw them into like a masters group, like a drums masters thing. It's got everything. It's got reverbs returning to it. It's just, there's your drums. And I like just having control of, it's basically like a VCA kind of situation, but just a little different. Mm-hmm. In this band, they do a lot of content for the internet, for TikTok, Instagram, Reels, like all of it. So what I'll do is I'll actually record these stems as well.
Oh, cool.
So these are the outs, and then they get sent to, so this goes to the PA. They also go to record. So when we go back to do some content things, we might rebalance, we might restructure, we might do a couple other things. But this is just a quick and easy way to like, here's a mix. You don't have to start from kick in, kick out. You can just go, here's my drums, and I'm gonna just pull them back or turn them up or whatever. So that's that's something that actually we found to be like a really nice middle ground. Not that I'm like doing anything specifically because of content, but content certainly is happy that I do that for them. And then I've got a later with effects sends. I don't really touch a whole lot of effects sends. I'm kind of touching a lot of effects returns. Cool. Yeah, I touch a lot of effects returns. I have mutes for some sends though. Like I got like a big vocal swell. Vocal 4 is like a big like no pre-delay 8-second like hall reverb that I'll just like fit instead of like a delay throw. I'll just toss up this and it's just a nice big thing. Kill the send, let it all kind of settle, and Vic can keep singing what he's doing. Same with delays. Mute that send so he can have words doing this while he's still singing. And it's just a fun little effect. Fun little something.
And on the right?
On the right, I've got output stuff. So this is just the PA. It's coming out into that master bus converter. And that is doing all the distributing in Lake. So I have left-right subfill coming from my left-right. It's just a little quirky way that I'm doing it at the moment. I'm not like necessarily obsessed with it, I suppose, just to be transparent. It's cool, it's fun, it sounds good. If I need more sub, I'll just go to my Lake and like turn the sub up.
Yeah.
But I have left-right subfill set up on here in case I get into a predicament, in case this dies, whatever. Some near fields, iPod, pink noise. And then I've got some other matrices like a record matrix, just separate, just get it out of the way. I've got a record plus talkback mix. So all the talkbacks are up like 10 dB from the record.
Oh.
So like in case of emergency, in case something happens, something funny happens, like there's just plenty of reasons why I keep it around. It's not essential at all, but it's still kind of nice. And then I've got a drums plus where this drums group is like 8 dB hotter than the rest of it, and it's a quick way, like if Lonnie has a really good show and he wants to maybe post a clip, to just it's just a quick way to just pull everything down and keep those drums right here. And most of the time it works out, master it a little bit, or like if he's doing something more important, we can pull from the stems, or if we're doing something way out of left field, then we've got all of the individual. So like I'm multi-track, like 80 to 85 channels.
How many inputs you?
Mixable inputs, it's like 38.
Okay.
40.
Are you guys doing tracks?
There's a couple like ethereal like synthesizers and just some like vocal swell things. Nothing that's like show crucial.
Do you do any in the box stuff?
Yeah. A lot of it in the box. Drums, it's bypass because I didn't like it at the last show, but like tape saturation, dynamic EQ, Pultec, vocal master, Pultec. Guitars. This has been insane. I'm using Pooch's preset that he had on here and just kind of tweaked it to what I wanted.
Shout out to you, Pooch.
Shout out Pooch. And so I've never met him. Would love to meet him someday. But he's one of those guys that, like him and like Ray Bull during the pandemic, put out such great content and such great like learning tools that like if you weren't pulling something from that, like what are you doing? It's kind of insane. So when I saw he had a preset for this, I was like, there you go. We'll start there.
If you had one thing you'd want to say to Pooch, what would you want to say to Pooch?
Just hey, just hi.
Hey.
Yeah, hey, happy to be here. Yeah. Yeah, so guitars, I've got this guy. Tape, I love the tape on this thing. And then just a little EQ to dump some things out. I like to do a lot of like big broad strokes. You're not gonna see too much like hacked away. If I can get it to like a place where it sounds good, usually it's going to another step. And then there, I kind of just slowly tighten the screws as it goes through, which for me is like kind of a fail-safe because like if something goes down, then it's not like you lose your entire snare drum or you lose your entire vocal. You're just going to lose like a chunk of it or some volume or some top end or something. Yeah. And it's just like, the trapeze artists have all those like safety nets below them sometimes. It's just all my layers of safety nets.
Yep.
So.
During the show, how does this console live?
I would say probably drums here, and then masters in the middle, and then I've got my PA stuff ready to grab. There's plenty of times where like, if I want to get real intimate in these arenas, that I'll just pull this thing back like 4 dB and just let everyone like listen in, and then if there's a big guitar part, just right back to where it goes, and huge. Just
Where would you say your hands mainly live?
Oh, here and here, kick, snare, and then drums are usually about like that, bass, some little track synthy things, some vocals, and just kind of like, I'll be here, I'll come back to here, but I set it up to where I can get to my guitars and stuff really quickly. I can get to effects returns really quickly, like, whoa, that reverb's insane. I set up a little drum grab where like, it's the input channels before the group. So if like snare top goes crazy, I can quick pull up my drum grab, go to snare top. It's all about how quickly can you get to things sometimes. And
what was one of the hardest lessons you had to learn? Mixing. Sometimes
what you think sounds good does not sound good for what you're mixing. Like, I would love to be able to give that like really like tubby, not tubby is the word, but like thick low end snare drum thing that a lot of people in the rock world have. I can't really make it work that, like, I like to think my snare sounds good. It sounds kind of beefy and there's a crack to it, and I've had some compliments on it. But I can't do that like thing, and it doesn't fit here, and I tried to do it and it just doesn't work. It's not, you just let it go. It doesn't sound good, let it go. And that's, you know, a pop vocal might not sound great with someone screaming, or, you know, these guitar tones aren't gonna sound good on a jazz gig. Like, it's just, you have to remember the music you're mixing for.
Yeah. Okay, well, they're doing some pink noise. We'll stop for a little bit. All right. It's been a crazy day.
Crazy.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for letting me clean my glasses while we do this.
You're great, brother. If people want to get a hold of you, follow you in your career, where can they follow you at?
Probably Instagram, JP Huff IV, or I have a company.
You're gonna give me your cell phone number?
Yeah, exactly. You could look at, I just gotta remember what my other Instagram handle is, _004 DOUBLEOHFOUR. That's where all the audio stuff is posted. If you want to see dumb food and adventures, the first one.
Dumb food and adventures.
Yeah, that's what people come for. No one really follows the audio. We'll get there.
Or come to a Pierce the Veil show near you, man. Thank you so much.